it going, everyone? Next talk is called The Twists of Performance Testing. Details that are no longer done like before. Welcome, Leandro, also known as Señor Performo. He comes from Mexico, more than 10 years of experience in performance testing and 20 in the tech area. Welcome. The stage is yours. As you can see, we're going to talk about the twists performance testing is having. Who here was in the performance panel? If you've been here for the panel, in this talk I'm going to expand a bit on those topics. I'm going to give you some examples and we're going to repeat some examples. So my varied Mexican examples. For those who don't know me, I'm Leandro Melendez, also known as Señor Performo, a devil evangelist. We advocate for performance. It all started with a blog of Señor Performo on a YouTube channel. There was one in Spanish, one in English, and Señor Performo, ENG for English, ESP for Spanish. I try to publish the content in both languages. So I try to make sure that everyone that wants to learn about performance and IT can do it. I also host Perf Bites in Spanish and co-host of Perf Bites in English with Henrik. We participate in English as well, and with Mark as well. And I finally got my book edited, The Hitchhiking Guide to Projects. And I try to explain there how we did traditional testing. Enough about myself. I want to thank you. I want to thank Abstracta and Quality Sense that allow me to come here and have some asado. So who's not from here? Have you liked asado? Was it too much? I know that it can be too much meat. Thank you to everyone that's here. Thank you for coming to listen to my dumb rant. The menu today, the dumb things I'm going to say, I'm going to compare similarly to what I was saying in the panel on what was the past and what's the present of performance testing. We'll keep talking about new practices in the performance world. So to start, we need to define what's performance. Those who don't know me, I have something that eats me up. There's a misunderstanding on what performance is. But if we do a dictionary definition testing, is to know the state of something, and performance means knowing the components, how quick software is. We can do testing and performance of other things, but today we're focusing on software. How fast our software reacts to certain events. These events can be very different. Not only clicks, can be when we turn on our computers, how long it takes to start up, how long it takes to shut down. Response time, that's performance. All these things. It's not only actions and clicks. Efficiency is also an element we'll check with performance testing. That also takes advantage of resources. A click can eat up all RAM, and what happens to our computer? It won't be able to perform properly. It will be inefficient. We want to measure how well it uses resources. The last component is a scenario. Be a single user. It could be just by turning off, on and off a container, the pod, or whatever we're using. So something I want to talk about, that performance is not load. The triforce of performance, like I said, the speed or velocity, we have impact or efficiency. Every situation that happens in our system, what impact will it have in our hardware? And the scenario as well. It could be one single user, it could be without users, it could be a lot of users. Here we have a dog, a Chihuahua dog, saying not all performance is load. There's a lot of variations. Performance does not mean load only. You're going to leave a big gap if you only do this. There's going to be a lot of elements that are not tested if you do this. Well, stopping my rant, there's changes that I mentioned. Why? What is it that is generating this need to change? Well, we've had some evolution. For example, from a traditional piñata, we go to a bit piñata. We have agile methodologies with CIs and CDs. It was different from olden times where we had waterfall processes, where we tested at the end of the process. So another change we have is the cloud. Everyone is sending their software to the cloud. This cloud is not at one place. It's extended everywhere. Sometimes we don't even know where it is. We know it's at a data center somewhere in Brazil, or there's some here in Argentina. They're everywhere. They always end up in the States, generally. So they're distributed. A single software could have a lot of components in various places in the cloud. It's not like before. The way in which we develop software has evolved to microservices, and it allows us to scatter things everywhere. The content is in a navigator, in a fridge, and it can communicate to the backend, and that backend through microservices could be gutted everywhere. Sometimes we don't even know where it is. We know how they're connected, but we don't know where they are. And because of this, we need to change. We need to go through the threshold of performance testing in this new evolution we're having. So these are some of the differences. It shows how they did things in the past in black and white 10 years ago. Now we do things in 4K or 8K. First, performance before had goals of doing that before you released the software. We had a month, 6 weeks, but in theory, but in reality, we had only 5 days. It was an obsession with load. Let's really hit it. Let's use a lot of virtual users. Make the system suffer. Let's make it crash. Sometimes it was not realistic. I had tests where it wasn't really necessary. Talking with Matias of Abstracta, he says that he knows that it shouldn't be done like that, but it's fun. So sure, it's fun, but it's a bit of Stockholm syndrome. What do we have to do? We need to have a continuous approach. Modern goals are not just hitting the system, but just make sure that in each sprint has to be released to production. Each sprint we need to make sure has a good response time. Make our apps snappy and quick, always and everywhere. What do I mean with this? We're always checking performance. We always need to check performance. There is not a second that goes by where we don't know what is going on with performance. We have to know it every time, not just when we're running scripts. In pre-production, in staging, production, post-production. So in all environments, we have to be mindful of this. And in small iterations as well, we need to add things. We need to add little things at a time. We need to see how things that we add affects the system. And these small things, we're going to be measuring them. It's not like before where we just loaded a macro load. We don't need to do that. We just need to go piece by piece. That's a big difference we're having today. I mentioned this before. The obsession with performance was just, before release, at that moment, we did the big load test and just hoped that it wasn't going to fail. We didn't plan for a mistake or everything. If we had to go back, the situation could get ugly. The macro releases that we did once or twice a year was wild. I remember one time we released 3 times, and that was very wild. And we were waiting for the development to finish. And we never even saw developers. We got an end product, and we had to figure out how to automate this. And it was a big problem to send it back because we had to repack it. The developers had left, they had gone back to their countries, so it was difficult to send it back down the line to make them fix it. All we wanted to do was just load, hitting the system. So like I was saying, now we're being early all the time to the project, the sprint or the office, because we have a mini releases that we're doing at least by sprint and several times a sprint as well. And maybe once a month we send to production. So we're checking performance all the time in each of the steps. And it goes hand in hand with development. I'm calling it getting up early because we need to be really early, even before the project even begins. Need to work with infrastructure, topology. That input that we have previously is a big difference, makes a big difference in preparing our software. Load tests are not macro loads now. The big ass load test that someone mentioned before. I don't know how to say this in Spanish. We don't say it like that in Spanish. Big tests are not as important now because we are in production, we know it's good, so we're adding small bits at a time. And this applies for everything in general. Some people get obsessed with complete cycles and regressions and automatizations, but it's not necessary. You just need to see what is affecting that small piece you're putting in. Another detail that we were obsessed with back in the day, and it was the first thing we thought about when we talked about performance testing, was scripting. We had 4 or 5 weeks for a project. 60% of the time was dedicated to scripting, of doing reverse engineering of the software to see how we could test software that was already packaged, how we were going to correlate the data that by doing these automatizations and these packaged solutions, we got obsessed with the front end. We saw correlations, we recorded steps. We don't do that today. We had test cases in which the first step was homepage, second login, 3 menu, 4 we'll go to the next menu, 5 was text, 6 what I was really interested in, for example, send mail or do process. All those steps were necessary to get to that point. And we had to build complex scripts. That's why it took us so long to do these automatizations, because there was no way of getting where we wanted to go without going through the steps. But we're not there now. Now the performance engineer can go direct, can be arrive to the equipment directly. Almudena talked about having her minions, performance people. I call them performance champs or supreme performers that are going to share knowledge with the teams and helping the teams. That the scripting is not the bottleneck of automation, but they taught people to just do an automation of that step. Now that we have microservices, let's focus on that step and not automatize all the steps. If there's a change in previous steps, the automatization will get broken. And so now we go to our team and we say, this is performance. You can do it this way. Here are the tools. Choose the one you want that works best for you. And make sure that results. Before we were a bottleneck, now everyone can access information, can access and interpret scripts and performance and how to integrate them. And having the whole team on board. And in caring about performance. Talking about metrics, these solutions, these monolithic solutions were like black boxes, which we had to gut and see with scripts what was going on inside. Today we have observability. That's a huge step in performance because we can see what's inside the patient without opening it up. This is a drastic change. What I was saying before, my reports, my precious, we were the bottleneck before because we were the only ones who could touch scripts, because we were the only ones who could touch the automation tools. We were the only ones who could execute, deliver, and give results because of job safety and all of that. It's not good to do it like that. So what do we do now? Instead of being the only person that could touch this, instead of being a soloist, we're like mariachis that always are switching between the instruments they're playing. Some people can sing and then they can play the guitar, but they're playing music together. Because if not, we become a bottleneck. It's very important. These is all a mindset change. And I really don't have enough time to tell you everything. There's a very wide mentality to performance. I'm just asking you to change your perspective and opening up. I've heard a scandalized tone when people are told that they can use any tool. They get surprised. Don't choose just one tool for everything. Well, I don't want to eat up too much time. I just want to know if anyone has any questions or comments. If for any reason we don't have enough time and we can't answer, you can look me up at SRPERF or Leandro Melendez. I have Twitter. I have Instagram. I don't have TikTok yet, but well, thank you for you to have listened to my rant. Any questions? We have a few minutes to answer some questions. Anyone that wants to break the ice? Is no one scandalized by what I was saying? Thank you, Leandro, for your talk. It was excellent. I wanted to ask if you've been involved in working with these monkey strategies to try the resilience of equipment, and how hard was it to involve teams in this? Are you talking about Chaos Monkey? No, I haven't worked in a project that has implemented this. I've studied on the subject. I've read about it. We're working with similar products that vary the response in chaos engineering, the blast radius. Not just to see the server randomly to see what happens. I've worked with people that install this in your infrastructure and manipulate what is going to happen. And I'll let you know how this goes. Thank you. I have something here for people that ask questions. I have some hats. Any other questions? Great talk. Do you think that this change of mindset could be applied in a high maturity state or at a premature maturity state? Well, I take it as the old dog, new tricks synonym. Yes. I'm going to answer with a joke. How many psychologists do you need to change a light bulb? You do it with one. It's just a matter of the bulb wanting to change. So you changing the paradigm is easy if everyone is on board. But we have our tricks learned and it's difficult to let them go. And sometimes we have Stockholm syndrome. I know it's old. I know it's not the best, but I want this because it's what I know. Any other questions? My question doesn't have to do with the technical part, but what's the roadmap you recommend for a functional tester that wants to do a performance path? That's a good question. They asked about this in the performance panel. The first step is for you to understand the performance components that you have to pay attention to. For example, seeing response time and just manually and starting reporting it. Sometimes, have you ever reported a slow process from functional testing? So good. It's just for taking the first steps. Go to developer tools. You can see how much time a component is taking up and other details. The first step is automatization for the most part. I would suggest don't focus too much on this, but it is useful. I think that for modern performance, something that can be good for you is to start learning monitoring. You open a dashboard and you start seeing what things are slow, what things are being triggered a lot, and that will open up your perspective, and you can start reporting this to your team if you see something that's slow or gets stuck. It's like a Christmas tree that lights up with mistakes, with bugs, and when you see it, you'll see that it's very transparent. Because sometimes people make it seem as it's only for geniuses, but you can start small in analyzing these kinds of signals. It's like a rabbit hole. Once you advance, one topic will open up another topic, and you'll start opening up your tree of knowledge, and with time, I know a lot of performance engineers that have not studied systems. Mark is a communication guy, so it can be done. It's a really nice career path, helps us across borders. And we've broken a lot of barriers. And there's good money as well in it. Thank you very much, Leandro. I think that's about it. We don't have much time. So thank you very much. I hope you liked it.